let's talk about this newer design trend we've been seeing, which we've been calling boho mystical design. Now, those two words, boho and mystical, are already two very well-known design trends, but when combined, they create this rustic, semi-vintage, earthy vibes, which also influences a lot of Western-looking designs. And in this video, we're going to create our own boho/mystical/Western brand, and we're gonna turn it into labels, and honestly, just a bunch of cool things, so you don't wanna miss that. And by the way, boho is always in style. I personally love boho because I feel like it's one of those trends that keeps coming back and attaching itself to another design style. So I feel like boho is always very refreshing. It feels modern because of that. Love boho. Love boho. Okay, Duda, cool. But what is boho? Well, boho is short for Bohemian, which is a design style that's all about pulling inspiration from different cultures, from nature, and a lot of vintage vibes. It creates this warm, lived-in feel, and it's very eclectic and very free-spirited. It's a very fun design style. I love it. So before we get into the mood boarding stage, let's talk about what we are making today. We're designing a brand identity for Honey and Sage, a honey brand that values and embodies the boho vibe, this Western, earthy influences. The focus is on organic, sustainable, and high-quality products that are crafted with intention. So we want the product to kind of speak with the audience that value the real, the raw, the beautiful in life. So we need to make sure that we're picking the right colors, the right typography, the right patterns, the right illustrations, and everything else that embodies the brand's value and the chosen design style, which is boho. So let's get into it. Alright, so we're gonna kick things off by building the mood board based on everything I've been saying about the brand so far. Like, we already know the vibe. It's gonna be earthy, it's gonna be handcrafted, it's gonna be a little mystical. So we're just gonna bring that all together visually. Starting the process with a mood board is a non-negotiable for me. Whether it's for a client project or a personal one, mood boarding is that moment where everything starts to click. It gives you a clear direction and helps align every design decision with the brand's energy and values. So let's hop on Pinterest and do a little digging. When I'm building a mood board, I usually go with a 3x3 grid, but that's just my go-to. You can do whatever layout works for you. But this is super clean, it's easy to organize, and it helps me keep a good balance of inspiration types. I like to include typography, packaging, imagery, logo references, and sometimes I'll throw in a color palette I might want to explore and maybe change it later, make some adjustments depending on how I feel later in the design process. But this one I came up with, I'm kind of obsessed. I mean, this color palette, yeah, love her. Wig.
Wig, did you just say wig?
Yes.
I know, wig. I feel that already.
Okay. So now we have our full mood board, and it's giving earthy, it's giving handcrafted, it's giving Western, and of course, she's giving boho, so she's the moment. So let's go ahead and start designing. Don't worry about the size of the artboard right now, everything's a vector, so it's fully scalable. Just create a mood board and start slowing around. I personally always start my design process with type because, well, I am that type nerd. I am one of those people who will go on and on about how typography completely changes how a brand is perceived. So yeah, it's always my starting point. We've got lots of serifs on our artboard, and I already knew I wanted to go in that direction. So I filtered my font options right away. My typography decision process is very simple. I picked only serifs, I tossed the ones I wasn't vibing with, and I kept a few solid contenders. Okay, so we're left with 3 fonts. I'm gonna go ahead and start tweaking them. Honestly, just start designing and experimenting a little bit, and that's gonna help you visualize the logo a little further and help you choose the font. Here, for example, I start by adding a sort of an outline to the text because I think this gives a slight incomplete effect, which is kind of what I'm looking for. This is not a block shadow or anything. It's simply outlining the text and making a little bolder and rounder. Then I went over to the Kittl Elements tab to look for illustrations. And listen, I live for the boho illustrations in there. Stars, bugs, feathers, stones. It's so mystical, and the illustration style is super consistent and super cute, which I love. I picked a bunch of them that felt aligned with what I wanted, and then I started trying them out with the text. And immediately when I saw the bee, I was like, yes, eyes locked. Love her, love her. I wasn't feeling the stars though, so I grabbed the eraser tool and got rid of them. But the bee, oh, she stayed. And then I just vectorized the illustration again and kept going. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm usually not a fan of super literal logos, like, oh, it's a honey brand, so let's do a bee and a honeycomb. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of expected, but sometimes the obvious choice works because it just fits. I mean, this little bee, she's got personality. She's cute, but not cliche. And she really matches the brand vibe. And honestly, when you're designing badge logos, sometimes being a little literal just works better. Like, yeah, your logo isn't supposed to sell the product, it sells the brand, but this bee on a jar at a local market, it says, "This is good honey," before you even read the label. So when I started testing the fonts next to the bee, Riley Frost just wasn't it. She was giving nothing, so she's out. That left me with Kind Loria and Daily Wiogia, or whatever it's called. I don't know. But honestly, I already knew Miss Daily was the one. I could feel it in my soul. Don't ask me how I choose fonts, okay? I just know. It's a sixth sense. Now it's time to start crafting the logo suite. And if you don't know what a logo suite is, it's basically a collection of logo variations that give a brand flexibility to use its visual identity across different platforms and context. So instead of relying on just one logo, a suite includes several versions that all stem from the same design. So you're going to see me crafting a badge or emblem logo design, which is going to be our main logo, because the way I see this project is that the label design is the main use case for this specific project, and we're going to be using the badge on the packaging. But we're also crafting a horizontal badge, a circle one, a vertical version, a combination logo. I mean, you'll see, we're crafting a bunch of different versions. Not all projects need this. This can be quite unnecessary depending on the type of project you're doing. But I always have fun when I see a project and I go like, oh, okay, I think I can work on a logo suite for this. I can use a word mark for a tote bag and an emblem for the label and the circle version on social media. You know, it's kind of fun. Sometimes you don't need variations of a logo, and that's fine. If the logo is really simple, or if it's short, if it's abstract, there's not much to change besides color. I get it. I mean, let's take the Kittl logo as an example. It's a word mark and a letter mark, and it works really well. It's perfect. But if needed, use your creativity and craft some variations for different use cases. Again, if needed, you need to carefully evaluate the brief and talk to your client about that. Don't come at me later with the, I've designed 12 logos and my client said it wasn't necessary and now it's your fault talk, because I'm warning you, depends on the project. Okay, I love this so far. It's very boho, and I think the badge format also gives a mystical vibe. All right, let's talk color. And you already know what I'm gonna say because I always say that, but I'm gonna say it again just in case. Do not start your logo in color. Start in black and white. If it doesn't look good in black and white, it's not going to work in color either. A strong logo should hold up without relying on color to make it good. I honestly didn't have to think through much when it was time for the color palette because I had that one color palette I crafted during the mood board stage. And I loved those colors so much that I just used the same thing for our project. But I usually come up with a color palette when I'm making the mood board, and then I'll maybe tweak something and make some changes as the project goes on. But that's just my personal workflow, of course. I mean, if you have a brief that states that you need a specific color or a specific color combo, great, you already know what you're doing, colorize. But keep in mind that color is something that can be easily changed. So it has a certain flexibility in the design process. And I mean, you do you, girl, have fun. All right, moving on to design label. First thing I want to say is the size of the label is going to depend on the jar, obviously. So before anything else, make sure you know the actual size and shape of the packaging, because that's what's going to define your canvas. If it's a short, wide jar or a tall, skinny one, that's going to change how your label wraps around it. And speaking of wrapping around the badge, it isn't centered on the label. That's because I was designing it with the specific mock-up in mind. Please ignore that. But since we're dealing with a cylindrical shape, there's no real center like you'd have in a flat surface. So this is not much of a big of a deal. But when you're designing your label, think about how it will look from the front when someone picks it up off of the shelf. And that's the area you want to prioritize. Now about the content that goes on the label, that totally depends on the project. Sometimes you have full creative freedom and sometimes you don't at all. It really varies. Some projects are regulated and you have to include certain pieces of information like the net weight, like the list of ingredients, expiration date, where it was produced. That's very simple. Basically, all products need all that. Maybe nutritional values. And some places even have legal rules about how big the font needs to be for that stuff. So yeah, definitely ask your client if there are any mandatory things to include and do your research. In my case, this is a fictional project, so I just included whatever I wanted. So not a problem for me, but I'm just letting you know, by the way. Design-wise, I'm loving the honeycomb detail I added to the background. It's subtle, but ties the whole thing together and gives a nice texture without being distracting. And then I also added illustrations for each honey flavor. Like the citrus one has this cute orange next to it, and it's really cute. I can. Also, each flavor has a color, and it's those small things that bring personality, and it will help tell the flavors apart without having to redesign the entire label for each one. I like building a system, so same layout, same type, same positioning for everything. And then, yeah, I just change the illustration and the color depending on the flavor. It keeps everything consistent, and that's what we need for brand recognition, right? Oh, and one more thing. Think about the print process. What looks gorgeous on your screen might look totally different once it's printed on textured paper or a transparent sticker. So try to do a test print if you can, just to be sure your colors are doing what you want them to do in real life. Okay, so I created some designs for the brand, like for potential merch or marketing stuff, you know, just to expand the visual universe a little.
And now let's see how this one looks on a mockup in Kittl. Just click on mockups and look for a project. I think this will look wonderful on a tote bag. And honestly, I was right, you know. It caught my eye. I just knew this was gonna look amazing, and it does. I would 100% use this as a farmer's market. It feels really natural and it's earthy, the kind of thing that makes you look like you only shop local and you grow your own herbs, you know? I think this is really cute. It really brings the brand to life in such a cozy, intentional way. Okay, now I'm going to create a brand board real quick off camera and I'll be back. And here it is. That's the final brand board. If you don't know what a brand board is, it's basically a snapshot of the entire visual identity of the brand. It's super handy to keep things cohesive across every touch point. And it usually includes the logo and its variation, your color palette, your typeface, sometimes photography style, brand patterns, or icons, all in one place. This is not a full brand guide, but it's a solid reference that helps you or your client make decisions fast without messing up the look and the feel of the brand. It's like your brand at a glance. And this is a close-up of the label design we worked on. So as you see, what I did here was keep things clean and structured, but very well aligned with the earthy, handcrafted vibe. I kept the typography bold and slightly rustic, and the illustrations are soft and botanical. And it also, as I talked about, the subtle honeycomb background pattern gives a texture without overwhelming everything. And the logo badge is supposed to sit right in the front where your eyes land when you're looking through the shelves, so it's instantly recognizable.
Then I added some information to make the label more realistic, like net weight, recycling icon, the barcode, the socials, and a little about the brand section. I love how our workspace looks towards the end of the design, how everything is clearly part of the same brand, because that's the goal. The goal is to create a cohesive visual identity. And again, I personally love Boho. It's got the perfect mix of nature and vintage, but also still somehow a little bit modern, because when executed the right way, it's always fresh, it's always current. So love Boho. Now, if you're ready to start creating your own Boho designs, you already know where to start. First, focus on texture and layers. Think natural materials, hand-drawn elements that bring warmth to your designs. Also, anything floral and mystical also works for Boho. Don't shy away from earthy, muted tones paired with pops of bold color with mystical accents. And when it comes to typography, go for fonts that have that handcrafted feel, that vintage vibes. This really helps your design give that Boho touch. Kittl is full of awesome Boho elements, by the way, and fonts that are perfect for this style. Plus, we got some pretty cool templates you can use that I linked down below in the description. If you love the Boho style as much as I do, leave a comment down below. I love to hear your thoughts. Also, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss design videos just like this one. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!